I always knew I did not quite fit into my family's perfect little show, but on that day, at my sister's wedding, I found out exactly how far they were willing to go to erase me completely. My father stepped onto the stage with that smile of a man who thought he owned the world, and announced in front of all the guests that I had decided to gift my house as a token of love. My house, the only place I built with my very own hands. When I called out his lie in front of 200 people, he lost his mind. And what happened next? Nobody at that party will ever forget. But what he never imagined was that this time, I would not stay silent, and the whole world would see who he truly was. Hello. Welcome to the Amazing Stories channel. Like and subscribe to this channel. Take a moment to turn on your notifications. Comment down below what city you are watching from. I would love to know and leave a heart on your comment. The first time I realized that in my family, love was measured by convenience, I was 7 years old. My sister, Haley, got a brand new pink Schwinn bicycle with a flower basket. I got a hand-me-down box of Crayola crayons. You are more mature, Caroline. You do not need all of that. I grew up hearing excuses wrapped up in smiles. Haley has always dreamed of this. She needs it more, you understand? At some point, I stopped questioning it. I just took a deep breath, buried what I felt, and learned to be useful. The silent daughter, the one who fixed things, the one who endured. Today, looking at where I am, I know nothing really changed. They just got more subtle about it. And when I say my life changed on a seemingly perfect night, at a $1 million wedding reception in the Hudson Valley, surrounded by imported white roses, glittering gowns, and soft jazz, I am not exaggerating. What nobody there knew was that I was not invited just to celebrate my sister's big day. I was brought there to be shown off as a symbol of family unity, a sort of human decorative piece. Except, I was no longer the quiet, moldable little girl they had raised. Before arriving at that restored colonial estate, a stage set for calculated smiles and French perfume-scented phoniness, I had already built my own stage, brick by brick, with calloused hands and sweat that nobody ever saw. While Haley backpacked across Europe, fully funded by our parents, I worked days at a construction firm in Albany and took classes at night. When I saved up enough, I bought a rundown, century-old fixer-upper on a quiet street in Beacon, New York. Everyone said I was crazy, that I was throwing my life away, that a single woman had no business taking on a gut renovation. Leave that to your dad. Invest in yourself, Caroline. Just buy a condo and be done with it. But I saw what they could never see. Solid bones, morning sunlight pouring in, original hardwood that just needed to breathe. I spent years restoring every single corner. I learned how to rewire, level floors, and strip paint off antique wood. My hands became my identity. And when I finally finished, when that house became my home, my sanctuary, my living proof that I mattered, my family started looking at it again. Not with pride, but with greed. It was simply too beautiful not to belong to Haley. When my sister got engaged to a guy from an old-money Manhattan family, I heard the poison disguised as a suggestion for the first time. It would be so picturesque for them to start their married life in your charming little cottage. It is so cozy. And well, you could always just get another place, Carrie. I laughed. A short, disbelief-filled laugh. They were dead serious. That night, I knew for sure my silence was the currency they used to buy my obedience. But I was no longer for sale. So, I agreed to go to the wedding, not for them, but to put an end to this story. To look into the eyes of the people who always benefited from my invisibility, and show them that I had finally learned how to say no. The estate was decorated like one of those high-end lifestyle magazines my mother kept on the coffee table. White floral arches, amber string lights reflecting off the calm water of a small ornamental lake in front of the venue, tables set with fine china that I knew she only rented to impress people. Haley glowed like she always did, because she was taught to take center stage, to breathe in attention. Around her, guests whispered about the radiant bride, while my father worked the room with his influential businessman persona, a glass of expensive scotch in hand, fully convinced he could bend reality to his will. I watched in silence, fully prepared. Nobody knew it, but that beautiful place held a massive crack, and it was not in the walls, it was in us. And the moment my father raised his glass to make an announcement that was not his to make, the world they controlled would crumble, like old plaster hit by water. I will not say I expected to be pushed. Nobody expects that kind of violence, especially not next to a lantern-lit lake surrounded by curious smartphone cameras. But I knew that when someone loses control over their favorite puppet, desperation turns into brute force. In that place where everyone expected me to just smile and play my part, I was ready to be the thing I always feared being: visible. And no water, no matter how cold or dirty, and no crowd of witnesses could wash away the truth I was about to speak. Soft music drifted through the illuminated trees, and laughter rolled in waves, as if everyone there was intoxicated by the floral scent and the illusion that happiness was a table set with gold silverware. I walked slowly, feeling the cold stone patio beneath my heels, paying attention to the details. I always observed things, maybe because learning to spot structural cracks saved my life. My parents mingled like hosts of a reality show they had not been cast in but insisted on starring in anyway. My mother, Rebecca, held the perfect smile she had rehearsed for decades, and my father, Anthony, greeted executives and acquaintances with a theatrical firm handshake. The flawless family, giving away the flawless daughter. The other daughter? Well, I was just a background extra. Or at least, that was how they wanted things to stay. Haley looked stunning. A structured white gown, a cloud of tulle, makeup that erased any hint of insecurity. She always shined effortlessly, but then again, effort was never part of her equation. The world simply bowed to her, and she had grown used to it. When our eyes met, her expression was a mix of surprise and discomfort. Maybe she hoped I would not show up. Maybe she feared I would. The bride and groom walking by drew the curiosity of the crowd. A group turned, whispering, "Is that the bride's sister?" "Oh, yeah, the one who rehabbed that old house. Did she really do it all by herself?" Some spoke about it like it was an exotic, almost funny concept, a woman knowing how to hold an orbital sander or a power drill. But right then, I noticed something different. A few people looked at me with a shy kind of respect, as if they sensed I was more than the role my family had assigned me. Haley threw her arms open dramatically and hugged me like we were in a Hallmark movie. Her overly sweet perfume suffocated me for a second. "I am so glad you came," she murmured, and only I could hear the hidden nerves in her voice. There was guilt there, or maybe fear. "I would not miss it," I replied with a tight smile that did not hurt, because I truly would not miss it. Not this moment, not this truth. The new brother-in-law, Austin, a man with impeccable posture and a trained smile, greeted me politely. But there was something about him, an observant, almost suspicious look, as if he knew that families who look too perfect are usually hiding dirt under the rug. I walked toward the edge of the lake. The water mirrored the string lights hanging from the branches, swaying gently in the breeze. It was a picture-perfect backdrop, and nobody could guess how symbolic it would soon become for me. Right then, I heard my mother behind me. "Caroline." "Honey," she started, lightly resting a hand on my arm. "We need to talk later." I felt the air shift. It was that tone, the tone that always preceded decisions I was not part of, just expected to accept, or at least, accepted in the past. "Sure," I answered, steadying my breathing. "But I will save you some time. My house is not up for discussion." She blinked, totally caught off guard. She did not expect me to cut straight to the chase. "Honey, do not start," she whispered, acting as if I was the one about to cause a scene. And right there, I felt the heavy weight of the cycle again. In her mind, I was always on the verge of ruining everything. My existence was only acceptable when I was docile, when I kept my mouth shut, when I faded into the background. "Who is starting?" "It is not me, Mom," I said quietly but firmly. "I just learned that silence is also a choice, and I refuse to choose it today." Her eyes flashed with that theatrical disappointment she mastered so well. But before she could fire back, my father walked up. "Caroline," he said, flashing the plastic smile he used when he wanted to dominate a room. "Come on, we need you up near the head table. It is going to be a very special moment for all of us." The word moment sounded like a threat. I did not back down. "If this moment involves my house, I hope you are all ready to hear the truth," I replied. His smile turned to stone. For a split second, the mask slipped, and I saw the man I always knew lived underneath that expensive tailored suit. Standing there in the amber light bouncing off the lake, I realized they had no idea who I had become. I was no longer a load-bearing wall for their achievements. I was my own foundation, and solid foundations do not collapse just because old builders try to tear them down with words. The night was just getting started, and so was I. The band started playing a new song, violins cutting through the air like sharp silk, while waiters passed by carrying sparkling flutes and the scent of imported French champagne that I knew my parents could never afford without maxing out their credit cards. Everything was a borrowed image, just like it had always been. The difference was, I was no longer part of their decorative package. I navigated through tables and people who did not genuinely know me. A few women complimented my dress. Others asked with calculated caution if I was really living all alone, as if it were some dangerous eccentricity. I smiled politely. It was not worth explaining to people who would never get it. When I got closer to the floral arch where the newlyweds were taking photos, I saw Haley yanking at her veil with irritated panic, snapping something harsh at Austin, who immediately looked down. A perfect picture fraying at the edges. It was strange. If I did not know her, I would think it was just wedding day jitters. But I knew. She was nervous about me being there, about me existing, about me taking up space. My presence was always the glitch in their narrative. Could you? Haley started, spinning around suddenly, her voice way too sweet to be genuine. Could you avoid standing near the main table for now? We are just finalizing the timeline for the speeches. The speech where Dad plans to give away my house? I replied without moving a muscle in my face. She froze. Carrie. Please, she whispered, darting her eyes around to make sure no one was listening. Do not ruin my day. You know how important this is to me. I took a deep breath. There it was, shameless, completely unfiltered, as if my sacrifice was a mandatory duty and her happiness was a birthright. I am not going to ruin anything, I said calmly. On the contrary, I came to watch, and to respond if I have to. All the color drained from her face. You have always been so selfish, she muttered, gripping her bouquet like she wanted to snap the stems. You never knew how to be happy for anyone but yourself. I chuckled softly. The irony was almost comical. I built everything I have from the ground up, Haley. You have been handed life on a silver platter since day one, and you think that is love. But love is not a pedestal. Love is respect. She opened her mouth to shoot back, but a bridesmaid called her name, and she immediately rushed off to fix her train. The illusion of the sweet, devoted bride had to be maintained. I walked out to the gardens, where smaller lights cast shadows over the ferns, and the wind carried the smell of damp earth. I needed to breathe. It felt surreal being there, like I had been cast in a rerun of a terrible play, with my family acting out their toxic script and waiting for me to hit my marks. That was when I heard footsteps behind me. You are really not going to cave, are you? A male voice asked. I turned around and saw Austin leaning against a tree trunk, studying me with a mix of curiosity and caution. I did not say a word. He sighed, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. Caroline, I get it more than you think. His eyes scanned the yard, checking if anyone was eavesdropping. But your family genuinely believes they own you. That is not going to change without making some noise. I have never been afraid of noise, I said. I just had to learn how to use it. He nodded slowly, like a man who knew a train crash was completely unavoidable. Brace yourself, he said. Your dad has had a few too many drinks and is feeling very confident. When men like him feel like they own the stage, they sometimes forget the floor can drop out from under them. That hit me as both a warning and a confirmation. They truly believed they could auction off my home like a wedding favor. My own flesh and blood had put me on the social menu for the evening. When I stepped back into the ballroom, the music had stopped. The lights dimmed, pulling focus to the center of the room, where my father was stepping onto a small riser, microphone in hand, chest puffed out, wearing the smile of a man who wore power like a second skin. My friends, he began, his voice booming and theatrical. Today is one of the happiest days in the history of our family. Polite applause, beaming smiles, raised glasses, and as a proud father, I have a very special surprise for this wonderful couple. My heart pounded, but not out of fear. It was out of recognition. The same old tired script, now right on the edge of falling apart. My mother sat with her hands folded in her lap, rigid as a fragile statue about to shatter. Haley smiled nervously, like a pageant queen caught in the spotlight, ready to be crowned with the life she always felt she deserved. My father continued, Our daughter Caroline has decided, in a beautiful and incredibly generous gesture, to hand over her newly restored home so her sister and her new husband can begin this journey with all the love they deserve. The room erupted in applause and musical gasps of awe. And for one split second, I felt something snap in the air. Not inside me, because inside me there was nothing but steel, but in them, in their theater, in their lie. My legs moved on their own. My voice found its shape before I even reached the center of the dance floor. That is a lie. Silence. The first actual, heavy silence of the night. And the world, finally, turned to look at me. When my voice cut through the room, the music died like someone had yanked the power cord. Champagne glasses hovered midair, and the fake laugh of a woman nearby froze halfway out of her mouth. The videographer's camera swung directly toward me. There was no going back. I took a breath. I was not shaking. Strangely, it felt like my body had been waiting for this exact moment since I was a teenager. Since every single time I was silenced with sweet words covering up poison, I never agreed to this, I repeated, loud, clear, without raising my pitch. My father turned around slowly, as if he could not fathom that I actually dared to walk all over his polished narrative. His smile vanished. He gripped the microphone so hard his knuckles went white. "Caroline," he said through gritted teeth, plastering that fake smile back onto his face. "Do not ruin your sister's day. Come up here and say thank you." "Say thank you?" I let out a short, sharp laugh. "Say thank you because you decided to announce a donation of something you do not even own? My house is not a wedding gift, it is not social currency, and it is not a prop to boost your reputation." A murmur swept through the room like wind over dry grass. Haley looked like she had seen a ghost. Austin stared at me with his mouth slightly open, clearly unsure if he should step in or step back. "Stop it right now," my mother hissed, appearing next to my father like a ghost trained in disaster management. "You are embarrassing us." I stared right at her. "You embarrassed me for years, pretending I was less than her. Tonight, I am just telling the truth." My father stepped off the riser, walking heavy, the microphone still tight in his fist. The band sat frozen, musicians holding their instruments like soldiers with lowered weapons. He marched up to me with that look I knew all too well. The look meant to crush you without leaving a mark. "Little girl," he said, his voice dripping with menace. "We are going to step outside and talk. Right now." No. I kept my feet planted firmly on the polished floor. "Any talking can be done right here. You chose the stage, Anthony. I didn't." He blinked slowly, and his expression warped. I saw the mask crack completely. He was no longer the respectable father, the charming CEO of Davis Construction. He was the man who always lived behind closed doors, the one who never tolerated being challenged. "You are going to apologize," he muttered low and fierce. "I am never going to apologize for protecting what is mine." That sentence triggered something deep inside him. I saw the muscles in his jaw twitch. He glanced around as if looking for backup, but in that exact second, every single guest was just a spectator. Nobody wanted to move, because nobody wanted to be caught on the wrong side when the dust settled. And then, he did something nobody ever expected. He lunged. His hand clamped down on my arm with sheer brute force. And before I could even react, I felt my body being yanked, dragged across the lawn toward the wooden deck surrounding the ornamental lake. The exact same lake meant for romantic floral photo ops and touching toasts. "You are going to stop," he hissed, his voice trembling with bourbon and bruised ego. "Even if I have to make you, let go." My voice was loud now, but my skin was burning under his grip. "You are hurting me." He did not let go. And then, in one explosive, completely unhinged motion, he shoved me. The freezing water swallowed me like a physical blow. The dress instantly weighed a ton, dragging me under. My arms thrashed against the surface, trying to fight the shock. When I broke through the water, I gasped for air. I heard screaming. I heard the unmistakable clicks of cell phones recording and flashes firing like lightning. The silence had not even lasted 2 seconds. "He pushed her," somebody yelled. Austin sprinted over, dropping to his knees on the grass, reaching his hand out to grab me. I saw my mother with both hands covering her mouth, completely frozen. I saw Haley paralyzed, not out of fear for my safety, but out of horror for the damage done to her perfect day. My father stood frozen at the edge of the deck, his chest heaving, his hands shaking, clearly torn between pulling me out or pretending nothing had just happened. "It was an accident," he shouted, desperately trying to spin the narrative before anyone could even process what they saw. "She slipped." "You all saw it," "She slipped." I coughed, taking a massive gulp of air and grabbing the edge of the wooden deck. My body was shaking, but not from the cold. It was pure outrage, something ancient and wild waking up inside me like a fire burning on water. There were cameras, there were witnesses, there was the internet. And this time, I was neither alone nor silent. When I finally pulled myself up, My hair plastered to my face, my makeup ruined. I lifted my chin. And even though I was soaked to the bone, humiliated in front of the local elite who had always ignored me, I spoke with a voice as steady and clear as a gunshot. It was no accident. My name is Caroline. I built my home with my own 2 hands, and nobody, absolutely nobody, is going to take it away from me. Not family, not tradition, and sure as hell not a lie. A cell phone in the front row hovered in the air. The red live symbol was glowing on the screen. The truth had finally started to breathe, and nothing, not the freezing lake, not the luxury catering, could drown it out. It did not even take 10 minutes for the video to go viral. By the time the venue's security guards rushed over to manage the chaos, dozens of guests had their phones up, recording the exact moment I climbed out of the water, shivering, with my father's face twisted in sheer panic. It was impossible to hide the audio of my scream. He did it. It echoed, looped, and amplified across every single recording. In the middle of the madness, one of the catering staff wrapped a thick towel around my shoulders and walked me inside the mansion. I was walking like a zombie, but my mind was operating with laser precision. Every memory, every past insult, seemed to line up in my head with terrifying clarity. This time, there would be no sweeping things under the rug. This time, I would speak, and everyone would listen. Outside, the wail of sirens sliced through the night air. The entire $1 million wedding went up in smoke. The event they spent months planning turned into a crime scene in a matter of minutes. Police officers walked through the main gates while my mother frantically tried to do damage control with the guests, calling it a simple misunderstanding. I saw the cops giving each other knowing looks. Nobody was buying her act. The footage was already blowing up group chats, local news blogs, and every social media platform. When a female officer asked me what had happened, I did not stutter once. He pushed me. I pointed toward the lawn, still dripping wet. It was intentional, because I told him he couldn't give my house away. She nodded, her face dead serious, and wrote down every single word. Her partner, a tall, calm guy, confirmed over his radio that they already had multiple videos of the assault circulating online. And right there, in that exact second, the game changed. It was no longer a game of he said, she said. It was hard evidence. It was high-definition reality broadcast in real time. My father was escorted to one of the cruisers, looking completely shell-shocked. He kept trying to explain himself, defaulting to his usual routine. The misunderstood patriarch, the good, respectable man who just got overly emotional. But a local news reporter had already shoved a microphone in his face before the cruiser door even slammed shut. The public wanted answers, and the internet wanted blood. Haley was sobbing hysterically, surrounded by her bridesmaids. Her smeared makeup, ironically enough, looked like a staged photo shoot. She desperately tried to spin it into a private family squabble, begging people to stop filming her dad, but nobody cared. Her crying face was already background noise in the footage. The main focus was the shove, the splash, and the soaking wet woman screaming for justice. Hours later, sitting in the emergency room, I could still smell the pond water and the fancy perfume baked into my skin. The doctor told me that, luckily, nothing was broken, just some bad bruising and a sprained shoulder. But the symbolic damage? That was permanent. When the nurses finally left me alone, I turned my phone back on. The notifications were endless. Hundreds of text messages, screen recordings with bold captions, clickbait headlines, and trending hashtags. Justice for Caroline. Wedding Lake Push. The daughter who fought back. Every single notification was a scream, and strangely enough, it formed a chorus. The next day, the district attorney's office called me in for an official statement. They had 28 different videos submitted by wedding guests. Every single one showed the exact same thing. My father violently grabbing me and throwing me into the water. There was zero room for interpretation. He was formally charged with assault and battery. My lawyer, Jake, a guy I had met years ago when I was fighting through red tape to get the deed to my house, showed up shortly after. He sat across from me and said very calmly, "They don't hold the cards anymore, Caroline. Now it's your turn to write the ending." And I believed him. By the following morning, the story was front-page news. Local CEO Anthony Davis assaults daughter at high society wedding. The photo of him in handcuffs getting shoved into the back of a police car was splashed across every major news site. His company, Davis Construction, took a massive nosedive in public trust. Huge clients pulled their contracts. The social silence he relied on was now acid, eating away at the only thing he truly loved, His reputation. Rebecca tried calling me 3 times. I let it ring. I knew it was not out of motherly concern. It was pure panic. The same panic that made her worship appearances her whole life. The same panic she was now feeling as she faced the judging eyes of her country club friends who used to pretend to admire her. Haley posted a typed Notes app apology on her social media. It was a massive misunderstanding. My dad would never intentionally hurt our family. I am asking for privacy during this incredibly difficult time. But the comments ripped her to shreds. Misunderstanding? We all saw the video. Did you know he was going to steal her house? Where is the sympathy for your sister? That night, I sat on the front porch of my house, and I just breathed. The very home they tried to rip away from me was now my fortress. The walls seemed to hum in the quiet, as if they knew exactly what it meant to stand strong. In the distance, I heard the faint sounds of the city, car horns, sirens, the hum of a world that had finally, actually heard me. And then it hit me. I had never just been fighting for real estate. I was fighting for the basic right to exist out loud, something they had never allowed me to do. The following days were a bizarre mix of absolute peace and utter chaos. Total peace inside my home, where every floorboard felt like it was breathing with me, and a media avalanche outside. Cable news segments, morning talk show debates, endless headlines. For the first time in my life, I was not the invisible middle child or the family's free contractor. I was the woman in the video, the woman who said no. The public outrage was so massive that the DA moved forward aggressively before I even signed the final paperwork. That shove, captured from 20 different camera angles and witnessed by hundreds, became a symbol. It was no longer just Caroline versus Anthony. It was the truth versus a lifetime of toxic control. Rebecca tried to reach out again, first with text messages, then with crying voicemails, and finally with massive paragraphs begging me not to destroy the family name. She never once mentioned what he did to me, only what I was allegedly doing to them. It was always like that. Their comfort always outranked my pain. I deleted every single voicemail without finishing them. Not out of anger, but because I had finally reached an even better stage. Total indifference. Haley scrubbed her social media and vanished for a few days. When she resurfaced, she posted quotes about seeking peace and distancing herself from toxic energy. People openly laughed at her. I did not even have to defend myself. The world did it for me. For the very first time, her golden child halo was broken. Through all of it, I just kept working. The house kept me grounded. Renovating every single inch of this place was what saved my sanity years ago when nobody believed in me. Now, it was my anchor. Every reminder of the work calluses on my hands, patched drywall, paint stains on my jeans, they felt like medals of honor. Some nights, a little doubt would creep in. I would ask myself, did I do the right thing? Should I have just kept my mouth shut and taken it, like I was always trained to do? But then I would remember the look in my dad's eyes. It wasn't new. It was the exact same look he gave me when I was a kid, teaching me that my boundaries did not matter. The abuse did not start at the lake. It started decades ago. The lake just finally caught it on camera. The legal system moved surprisingly fast. My father was found guilty of assault and battery. He didn't just lose business contracts. He lost his standing, his golf buddies, his illusion of power. He didn't get a massive prison sentence, but it was enough. More importantly, he became the one thing he was terrified of being, completely irrelevant. Rebecca ended up selling the big colonial family home. She told people she just couldn't handle the heavy energy of the place. The truth was far simpler. Without the massive social budget, she couldn't afford the stage anymore. I heard she moved into a much smaller condo across town. I felt absolutely nothing. No joy, no sadness, just empty space. Freedom actually tastes exactly like that. Haley and her husband packed up and moved to Denver. They stayed married, but the shiny, perfect facade was completely gone. In her photos, she always looked like she was desperately chasing a validation she never really secured. And now, everybody knew exactly why. As for me, I kept on living. No rush to be anyone's hero. No need to prove my worth to anyone. I went back to consulting with clients in my beautiful, fully restored home. One Saturday afternoon, while I was sanding down an antique wooden door, I heard the doorbell ring. It was Mrs. Miller, my older neighbor, holding a homemade pound cake. "Caroline," she said, "I know you just walked through a hurricane. I just wanted you to know, you are not alone here. You standing your ground gave a lot of other folks courage." That single sentence meant more to me than any front-page headline. As the months rolled by, more people started knocking on my door. Curious neighbors, local architecture students wanting to see the restoration work, and even women who recognized me from the news and told me they found the guts to leave bad situations after hearing my story. I never started a foundation. I never launched a movement. I just opened my front door. I poured them coffee. I showed them how to handle an orbital sander, how to treat 100-year-old wood with the respect it deserves. Fixing the world starts exactly like that, with raw wood, sweat, and small, everyday choices. Almost a year passed. On a warm afternoon in late summer, I sat on the wooden porch bench I had built using scrap beams from the initial demo. The sun was casting long shadows across the yard. A light breeze rustled the leaves of the dogwood tree I had planted all by myself. I closed my eyes and listened to the footsteps coming up the stairs. It was Jake, my lawyer, who was now more of a best friend and basically family. He set 2 mugs of coffee on the small table and sat down next to me. "The civil suit is officially closed," he said, handing me a thick manila folder. I took the paperwork. My hands shook just a tiny bit, but not out of fear. It was the physical proof of something way bigger than a legal payout. It was pure autonomy. "I didn't even have to scream to win," I replied, looking out over the lawn. "I just had to refuse to shut up," he smiled. "Sometimes, courage is just refusing to sink when everyone expects you to drown." I looked at my house. Every square inch had my history baked into it. Every crack I spackled and sanded was a piece of my own soul I had put back together. And now, nobody was ever going to steal that away from me. I took a deep breath of the warm summer air. For the first time in my entire life, I felt genuine, absolute peace. Not the fake peace that comes from avoiding an argument, but the heavy, real peace you only get after walking straight through the fire. The house was mine. My life was mine. And everything I built had my name on it. Not because it was handed to me, but because I earned it. Alone, but never, ever silent again. Sitting there on that simple porch, I finally understood the truth my family had tried to hide from me my entire life. The moment you stop asking for permission to exist, the whole world changes. And so do you. If you followed this story all the way to the end, first of all, thank you so much. This journey was about courage, setting boundaries, and above all, learning that our voices matter, especially when people try to shut us up. Now I want to hear from you. If you were in the protagonist's shoes, what would you do? Would you have the guts to say no, even knowing your own family would turn on you? Let me know in the comments down below. Would you do the exact same thing? And while you are at it, tell me what city you are watching from, because I make it a point to leave a heart for you in the comment section. If this story touched you, if it made you think, or if it gave you the strength to set boundaries in your own life, hit that like button on this video. It really helps the channel grow and reach more people who might desperately need to hear something like this. And of course, subscribe and hit the bell icon so you do not miss any of our upcoming stories. Each and every one of them is made with a lot of love and dedication just for you. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder. Nobody can ever take away what you built with your own 2 hands.